The Galactic Council chambers shimmered with light from 1,000 holofeeds, each one pulsing with predictions and statistical assurances of victory. Every projection ended the same way, Earth's military capability collapsing within 6 hours of first contact. The war hadn't even begun, and to them, it was already over. Counselor Dren of the Valix Empire leaned back, mandibles clicking in satisfaction. The humans rely on primitive kinetics and obsolete propulsion. They still use gunpowder derivatives. Our drones will breach their defenses before their species can comprehend we are upon them. Others murmured in agreement, nodding through translucent visors. Charts hovered midair, population centers, orbital paths, fleet composition, all dissected and color-coded into weakness. At the far end of the chamber, a single dissenting voice rose. Admiral Theruin of the SYTH Collective, a veteran of 100 campaigns, looked uneasy. Their data patterns do not conform to logic. Their simulations fluctuate unpredictably. Every time we model human strategy, outcomes diverge by tens of thousands of variables. His warning was met with soft laughter. Chaos does not equal strength, Dren sneered. They lack discipline. They fight like cornered beasts. Perhaps, Theruin replied quietly. But cornered beasts often kill. The council dismissed him with a wave. The vote passed unanimously. Operation Final Dawn would begin within the next cycle. Earth would be pacified before its sun set. The decision was broadcast across the galactic net, translated into a dozen languages, carried through every colony and ship. It was not a declaration of war. It was a timetable. Within hours, alien newscasters announced countdowns. Commentators speculated on how humanity would beg for surrender. Merchants invested in reconstruction contracts. Generals spoke of educating primitives. Every culture in the council felt certain they were witnessing history, an inevitable correction to the anomaly called humanity. When the transmission reached Earth, it was met with silence. No panic statements, no mass evacuations, no desperate broadcasts. Just quiet. Then, without fanfare, a global alert went out under one designation: Engagement Protocol 0. Civilian networks went offline. Satellites changed orbit. A silent hum passed through defense grids as if the planet itself had taken a deep breath. In command bunkers buried beneath the surface, humans worked without words. Engineers calibrated kinetic launchers with unnerving precision. Strategists adjusted trajectories not for hours, but for seconds. Everything was synchronized: time, rotation, gravitational alignment. Across the system, autonomous units activated. No one shouted. No one prayed. They had already done that decades ago. General Hale of Earth Command watched the alien broadcast play on a muted screen. Counselors were still boasting, discussing which species would govern Earth after occupation. He didn't smile. He only said, "They think we'll lose in 6 hours?" His aide nodded. "Yes, sir." "Let's be generous then," Hale murmured. "Give them 15 minutes. Orders rippled through encrypted channels. Subsurface silos rotated, camouflaged satellites shifted orbit. Deep in the Kuiper belt, unmanned arrays powered up, targeting solutions updating in microseconds. Every calculation was final. Every move had been rehearsed long before diplomacy failed. On Mars, a listening post received a single encrypted pulse from Earth. No text, no code, just a timestamp. The crew stared, realizing it marked the end of peace. One whispered, "So it begins." Across the Council's observation fleet, analysts noticed sudden anomalies. Human satellites going dark, radar distortions spreading like ripples. They dismissed them as panic responses. The first officer aboard the flagship recorded a note of disdain: *primitive jamming detected. Resistance minimal, *. Back on Earth, Hale glanced at the countdown clock. The Council predicted 6 hours until defeat. Humanity had chosen a different clock. A quiet one. Precise. "Start the timer," he said. The world obeyed. In that moment, the difference between arrogance and understanding stretched wider than any galactic distance. The Council saw a small world, fragile and doomed. Humanity saw data, probabilities, and one simple truth: they had always been underestimated. While the Council celebrated their certainty, human hands sealed the last launch bay. On every continent, in every hidden facility, silence was the language of war. And beneath that silence, the Earth itself seemed to whisper the only sentence that mattered: you have no idea what's coming. The alien fleet arrived in perfect formation, filling the void between Mars and Earth with shimmering lines of metal. Their ships, vast and angular, moved with military precision. Each vessel was a cathedral of technology, energy shields layered across hulls, ion cannons humming with anticipation. To them, this was not a war. It was a display. The humans had refused subjugation, and now the galaxy would see the cost of defiance. The first waves approached Earth orbit without encountering resistance. Human satellites drifted aimlessly, many offline or unresponsive. Alien sensors registered nothing but the quiet hum of an unprepared planet. "No defense signatures detected," reported one commander. "Target acquisition complete. Initiating planetary bombardment in 60 seconds. Then, without warning, hundreds of faint glimmers appeared on the periphery of their radar. At first, they looked like debris or sensor noise. But the readings multiplied, dozens, then hundreds, then thousands. The fleet's command network began recalibrating, confused by false echoes. A voice from the tactical deck tried to explain. "Unknown projectiles detected, small, fast, erratic trajectories, non-energy based." Before anyone could react, the first kinetic rod struck. It pierced the flagship's forward section like a spear, traveling at a fraction of light speed. Shields designed for plasma and particle weapons were useless. The hull bent, folded inward, and vanished in silence as the ship disintegrated into molten fragments. Within seconds, the fleet's tight formation became chaos. Commanders barked orders, trying to locate the source of the attack. Scanners spun in every direction, hunting for visible fleets or launch signatures. There were none. The projectiles had been launched long before the aliens had even entered the system. Every impact followed a pattern so exact it seemed impossible. On Earth, no celebrations, no broadcasts, just cold coordination. Subsurface servers processed incoming telemetry in real time, feeding adjustments into autonomous weapons that orbited unseen. The alien fleets believed they were hunting targets. In truth, they were already inside a kill zone designed months before they ever arrived. Another impact ripped through a cruiser's engine core, venting plasma into the void. The crew screamed as their instruments flickered out, not from damage, but deliberate interference. Communication relays across the formation began transmitting nonsense, looped coordinates, false commands, corrupted signals. In the Galactic Council's observation chambers, the first signs of confusion appeared on live feeds. Fleets that were supposed to begin planetary suppression were veering off course. Telemetry showed ships colliding or vanishing. Analysts scrambled to explain the data, suggesting software malfunction or electromagnetic storms. One voice asked, "Are the humans jamming them?" but was dismissed immediately. No one believed the humans possessed that capability. Admiral Theron watched in silence as feeds turned to static. "They're not jamming," he muttered. "They're guiding." In orbit, the alien commanders began detecting bursts of electromagnetic noise emanating from dead satellites. Some emitted false beacons, others reflected signals that warped the fleet's targeting systems. Every defense layer they trusted became a weapon against them. In under 5 minutes, coordinated bombardment plans had devolved into isolated panic. Human command didn't issue threats. They didn't speak at all. The only recorded human transmission during the battle came from a single orbital relay. Engagement clock started. Moments later, the aliens' forward fleets disappeared from every system screen. Some ships exploded under impacts so precise that they seemed orchestrated. Others drifted powerless, their reactor cores shut down by cyber attacks synchronized to impact timing. The surviving vessels retreated in disarray, firing blindly into the void. The war, which the Council predicted to last hours, had turned in minutes. The alien captains couldn't comprehend how an entire fleet could be dismantled without ever seeing the enemy. They were fighting ghosts, machines that didn't miss, trajectories that didn't falter, and a species that never blinked. Earth rotated silently below, its surface calm, its people unseen. Humanity hadn't defended, it had executed. The alien armada's command network collapsed the moment the second wave of strikes began. No one had time to understand what was happening. Every system designed to predict enemy movement reported nonsense, coordinates changing faster than processors could adapt. Ships collided while trying to evade phantom threats. Weapon locks failed, propulsion systems overloaded, and communications filled with screams and static. In the chaos, one commander finally realized the horrifying truth: the humans hadn't fired recently. Every impact now tearing through their ships had been calculated and launched hours before the fleet had even entered the system. The entire human response had been preloaded, predicted, timed with mathematical perfection. Every projectile, every false signal, every jamming pulse was part of a single, unified plan that unfolded on its own. Humanity wasn't reacting, it was executing inevitability. The alien admirals tried to regroup, ordering ships to retreat behind planetary debris for cover. But the debris itself became a weapon, massive chunks of shattered hulls redirected by invisible tugs of gravity and microthrusters. Objects as small as maintenance drones slammed into cruisers at terminal velocity, shearing armor as though it were paper. Energy shields flickered out one by one, overwhelmed by kinetic saturation they were never designed to withstand. One alien flagship, the Vrax Eternal, attempted to jump out of the system, spooling its drive in desperation. Midway through the sequence, a dormant satellite reactivated, transmitting a single burst of code. The ship's navigation matrix inverted its own coordinates. The drive activated, and the vessel folded into itself, vanishing from existence. The Council's live feed captured the moment, then went black. Down on Earth, the human command centers remained almost silent. Only the sound of synchronized systems ticking in rhythm filled the air. Analysts monitored outcomes, not combat. Phase 3 achieved, one technician said flatly. Remaining hostile tonnage at 12% and falling. General Hale nodded once, expression unreadable. There were no cheers. The operation was just following its timeline. In orbit, alien ships continued to die. Those attempting to transmit distress calls discovered that their signals were bouncing endlessly between relay nodes hijacked by human code. They called for reinforcements, but the messages were redirected, rewritten to read, engagement complete. Stand down, Aboard the remaining battleships, power flickered as their own drones turned on them. Subroutines had been infected long before launch, perhaps through the very communication links they'd used to mock human diplomacy. Now those same systems fired upon their masters. It wasn't war anymore, it was cleanup. From the Council's core world, senior officials watched the disaster in disbelief. Real-time tactical overlays showed impossible efficiency, entire squadrons erased in coordinated waves. They couldn't even tell how many human ships were involved because not a single confirmed vessel had been visually identified. Reports came in of invisible firing solutions and temporal synchronization anomalies. The data analysts stopped trying to make sense of it. Nothing about the battle conformed to known military science. Then came the final transmission. Across the remains of the fleet, a clear voice spoke through every frequency simultaneously, calm and unhurried. The war is concluded. You entered our system. You are no longer within it. The message carried no threat, no anger, only fact. Moments later, the last alien flagship was hit by a cascading sequence of detonations, each one striking at precise intervals of 2 seconds, until the hull disintegrated completely. At the 14-minute mark, all alien vessels ceased transmitting. The entire invasion force, hundreds of ships, thousands of lives, was gone. The battlefield was silent except for drifting fragments of alloy, cooling slowly in the dark. On Earth, the timer stopped. The screen displayed a single line of text: engagement concluded in 14 minutes, 37 seconds. No one spoke. There was nothing left to say. The enemy had predicted humanity's defeat in hours. Humanity had ended the war before the clock could finish its first quarter. The council chambers were silent when the first fragments of data arrived. What had been a confident live broadcast turned into static and corrupted signals. The triumphant narration stopped mid-sentence as feed after feed went dark. Fleet telemetry returned only blank coordinates and time-stamped bursts of unreadable code. Analysts tried to reconstruct what had happened, but no two accounts matched. Some reported gravitational distortions, others described systems behaving as though time itself had fractured. The only consistent detail was that the human counterattack had ended everything within minutes. Survivors' escape pods drifted in damaged orbit, transmitting broken cries for rescue. A few were retrieved by Council recovery ships. The beings inside were incoherent, trembling, unable to explain how entire squadrons had been erased without warning. One kept repeating a single phrase in disbelief. They were already there. Another spoke of seeing trajectories appear out of nowhere, impacts arriving before weapon alerts even registered. Command psychiatrists labeled the symptoms as combat derangement, but deep down, no one believed it was madness. Reports trickled in across the Empire. Shipyards went silent. Supply lines froze. Every communication relay that once mocked Earth was now transmitting emergency beacons. The Council's military divisions demanded answers, but none came. Science teams reviewed the few remaining fragments of the battle data, tracing patterns that defied logic. Impact vectors didn't originate from any planetary coordinates. Instead, they emerged from synchronized orbital windows that shouldn't have been capable of aligning. It was as if humanity had rewritten celestial mechanics to trap its enemy. Admiral Thiruin, the one who had warned them before, studied the corrupted recordings in isolation. What he found chilled him. Hidden within the static was a repeating pulse, binary encoded with terrifying simplicity. It wasn't random interference, it was deliberate. The message translated to a single human phrase: "You were expected." When he presented his findings to the Council, the assembly hall was tense with disbelief. "Impossible," one scientist muttered. "No species possesses that level of predictive computation." Thiruin only stared back and said, "They didn't predict us. They understood us." Panic rippled through the political sphere. Broadcasts that once laughed at human defiance now spoke in hushed tones of the Terran phenomenon. Civilizations that had mocked Earth began dismantling their own fleets, fearing retaliation. The Council's propaganda machine tried to restore confidence, but the damage was irreparable. No empire could hide the fact that an entire armada, the most powerful in known history, had been annihilated without a single human casualty reported. On fringe colonies, rumors spread like wildfire. Some claimed the humans had used forbidden temporal weapons, others insisted they had discovered a way to bend probability itself. Religious movements emerged overnight, declaring humanity the Silent Reapers, or Time's Children. The Council labeled these stories as superstition, yet none dared to test them. Even speaking Earth's name carried unease now. On Earth, the aftermath was quieter than the battle itself. No celebration, no declarations of dominance. Governments simply declassified portions of the engagement report, time stamps, trajectories, mission duration. The document contained no commentary, no bravado, only cold data. To outsiders, it read less like a victory report and more like an experiment's conclusion. Across the galaxy, fear began replacing arrogance. Trade routes adjusted to avoid soul space entirely. Exploration vessels deleted human coordinates from their star maps. The universe had learned a lesson without hearing a single boast or threat. Humanity didn't seek vengeance, alliances, or recognition. Its silence said more than any broadcast ever could. At the next council session, attendance was sparse. Many delegations refused to appear. The few who did sat in uneasy quiet. Thiruin spoke once more before the assembly, his voice steady but grave. "They ended the war in minutes. And they never asked if we understood why." No one answered. Every species present felt the same chill. Humanity had spoken in the only language that mattered: precision, silence, and inevitability. Weeks passed before the Galactic Council dared to reconvene. What had once been a hall of confidence now felt like a crypt. The air was heavy with defeat cloaked as analysis. Representatives avoided eye contact, pretending to review data that none of them could explain. No one mentioned the word war. It had become forbidden, synonymous now with extinction. Every empire present had lost something, if not ships, then faith in their superiority. The official inquiry began, demanding to know how a species from a single backwater world had dismantled a combined armada in less than a quarter of an hour. Engineers presented their findings: no exotic energy readings, no temporal distortions, no supernatural phenomena. Everything the humans did was rooted in physics, mathematics, and planning. That truth frightened the Council more than any unknown weapon could have. Humanity hadn't broken the laws of nature, they had mastered them. The concept of Terran minutes entered military vocabulary across the galaxy. It became a doctrine of fear, a grim metric describing the span between certainty and annihilation. Military academies rewrote their war manuals, adding cautionary chapters titled Human Contingency Scenarios. Cadets studied what little was known: the synchronization tactics, the predictive targeting, the psychological warfare of silence. Every lecture ended with the same reminder: if you believe victory is assured, remember the Terran minutes. On the outer colonies, fear metastasized into obsession. Some factions argued for immediate peace overtures, others for isolation. Several empires withdrew completely from exploration zones near Sol. Commerce guilds blacklisted human trade routes, not out of spite but out of dread that proximity might provoke attention. The entire galactic economy bent under paranoia. In quiet sectors, unconfirmed reports surfaced of human signals detected near uninhabited systems. They never spoke, never answered hails, just silent transponders drifting through deep space. To those who found them, they served as reminders: humanity was watching. None dared to verify if the signals were real or phantom echoes of fear. The Council attempted diplomacy. A formal message was transmitted toward Earth, written in the most respectful tone possible. No demands, no lectures, just an acknowledgement of mutual misunderstanding and a request for dialogue. It waited 3 standard cycles without reply. When an answer finally came, it was a single line, transmitted on every frequency: * war is a decision. You made yours. We ended it. *. The words shattered what little unity the Council had left. Some saw it as a warning, others as closure. Regardless, no one dared send another message. It was agreed, unanimously, that humanity should remain undisturbed. For the first time in millennia, the Galactic Council declared a sector off-limits not for protection, but for survival. In the following years, legends grew around the event. On countless worlds, storytellers spoke of the day the galaxy learned humility. Scholars coined a term for the phenomenon: the human equation, the unpredictable variable that no simulation could contain. It was whispered in command briefings and political gatherings alike: if humans could end a war in minutes, what could they do with preparation? Meanwhile, on Earth, the world returned to its routines. Cities rebuilt, ships refueled, silence resumed. No memorials were built, no broadcasts made. The operation that had erased the galactic armada became another classified report filed under strategic defense. Humanity did not seek conquest or revenge. Its greatest victory was that it never needed to prove itself again. In time, the galaxy adapted to a new reality, one where peace existed not from goodwill, but from caution. Every major empire began to measure time differently. 6 hours no longer symbolized certainty of victory. 14 minutes became the boundary between arrogance and consequence. Across the stars, every ruler understood the same truth: humanity didn't conquer worlds, they redefined fear. The Council had predicted human defeat in hours. Instead, they taught the galaxy what a minute meant to those who refused to kneel.